Hey, Scott Russell, it's time we had a pretty straight chat about finances, isn't it? I am convinced, and you can have your own opinion, I'm not trying to convince anyone, but I am convinced that by the end of 2023, the latest of 2024 presidential election, we are going to see the collapse of the US currency. When the US currency collapses, it will spread across the world, Australia, New Zealand, places like that. It's gone. I believe the laws and the things that are needed by the globalists are already in place in a lot of these countries to bring about what they want. But in the US, it's the wild card. They don't know what to do with the US right now, but they have a plan. So a lot of people are saying, well, I will never take the CBDC because of all the crazy authoritarian controls, antichrist controls around it, mark of the beast controls. But I think it should be clearly understood. Desperate people do desperate things. And when they collapse the currency, people are going to be, well, I need to feed my family. I need to know where my mortgage payment's coming from. I need to know, and there's going to be so many great coercive reasons why a CBD would make sense. And so many people will just take it. But then there'll be the others that'll say no. But anyway, now is the time to start to prepare for that. If you have significant amounts of monies in the bank, I am suggesting, I'm not a financial advisor, but I am suggesting that you give that some serious thought on what to do with it. There are other videos on my site that you can see of suggestions and things, but don't do nothing. For God's sake, for your family's sake, don't do nothing. He who buries his head in the sand is bound to get burned in the end. Now, a lot of, we can all say, what's the hope? What's going to happen here? I'll store some food. No, this is a complete shifting of global power. This is a complete shifting and resetting of the world as we've known it. To think that you can store a few baked beans in your basement and that's going to get you through, it's not true. It's not wrong to store food. It'll cut you a little bit of slack, maybe, but this thing's a long-term thing. And I wanted to say this on another level, and I was on a personal level. I was a minister here in Australia in a non-denominational church, my father's church, for many years. I used to take mission teams around the world. I would preach in churches all over the world and just did the normal standard church thing. And I got the US residency, which I didn't want, and that's a story for another time. I fought it. But I ended up in the US in September 99, and not really knowing why I was there, but knowing that something was to change. Now, right as I left, I'd had an office equipment business. I sold the business and invested all the money with a reputable investment man in one of the churches. I lost all the money. So I turned up in the US with pretty much nothing. I used a third of the money I had in the first 3 days of being in San Francisco. I am saying this because I want you to understand that God has got this covered. Over 20 years ago, God prepared me for what was coming. So early January 2000, I started to have dreams of, in the US, I'm here with nothing, right? In the US with nothing. And I started to have a dream of US currency that deep on the streets in Boston. People were throwing it out of the window like a ticker tape parade, and no one was picking it up. And in my dream, I remember thinking, or vision or whatever it was, I remember thinking, nobody is picking it up. Why not? It was worthless. And I heard they're sick of the God they've served for so long that's failed them. And so I still didn't understand that, but I lived from that point on in a way that could only be described as in preparation for today, to living off the grid while in the grid. I had no visible means of income since the September 99. I owned my own home in Australia. I owned it outright. Didn't owe a penny on it. Sold the home and we gave that away in the middle of that journey. It's in a book. I wrote this book, Vegetable Garden of Faith and a Corvette. If you haven't seen it, I suggest read it. Read it if you're worried about what's coming, and know that book was written a long time ago in preparation for what's coming. If God's prepared me, He's prepared others like me for the day that's coming. I know what's happening in the US. I know the part that I have to play in it, and I know where it's going to go. I believe in my heart. And I've lived over 20 years in the knowledge of that. It's kept me going every day when people have looked at me and gone, this guy's crazy. Why isn't he living normally? Why isn't he doing things the way everybody does it? And that was one of my biggest struggles, was to fight normal. Everything in me wanted to be normal. I had been successful. I could have lived a comfortable life in Australia. But God ruined that. And when you become a man of God, your life no longer becomes your own. It's ultimately cost everything in my life. But God has said, He's prepared us. He's prepared us. So I want you to understand today, there is an answer. I'm part of that answer. You're part of that answer, because you're awake and you see it. If you don't wake up, if you keep trying to go back to bed, you're going to get caught how you don't want to get caught. Prepare for your family. You feel freedom. You know it's coming. You know the trouble's coming. So prepare. Start to do things. And again, don't just stockpile food, but start to prepare yourself spiritually. To start to prepare yourself that what we are looking at is biblical. It's on biblical, epic proportions. And if you think that, oh, well, it's all going to go back to normal, it will for some. But you are not, the ones that want normal are going to pay a price for that. They are not going to have their freedom. They're going to have a mark to buy and sell, which the Bible talks about. And you say, well, and I actually even think that the World Economic Forum and these globalists, I mean, they are so emboldened and brazen that they will probably even call it the mark of the beast, just to mock it. The Chinese have a thing called Skynet that a company set up, and they love the movie the Terminator, so they called it Skynet, and it is Skynet what it's doing. Look it up, Skynet in China. These people are not, they don't believe in God. They mock God. They spit in the face of God. And so they will probably call it this when it comes out, with a big smile on their face, just to mock those that would call themselves of faith. So we have a choice right now, and you to take a choice to follow along with the normal. And normal means you will lose all your freedom, or you walk in the Spirit. And when you walk in the Spirit, you won't carry out the lust of the flesh, the lust of that's trying to tell you that this is the way of life you need to live. There's an answer. I'm part of that answer. You're part of that answer. And if over in September, what's 23, nearly 24 years ago, God positioned, I know me, I can only speak about me, for this day that's coming. And I believe once the currency collapses, we're going to have a 3-year window in the US of chaos. And in that chaos, like we're seeing in France right now, in that chaos, that people are going to be desperate. And in that desperation, a voice will rise up and start to say, I have an answer for you, and you'll take this CBDC. And people will take it because you want an economy. They want normal again. They want a way of life again. And the greatest problem that people have nowadays is normal. Think about it in the freedom movement. As things calmed down, everybody went back to normal. Normal has gone. And if you are prophetically sighted, or you have something inside of you speaking to you, you know that's true. You know this world is not going back to normal. Time to slap yourself from your sleep, wake up and say, I need to be proactive here. So God's got it. He's got us. Get the book. If you don't have the money, send me an email. I'll send you an electronic copy of it. Read it. And don't look at it and go, oh, I could never live that. I could never live it either, but I did in preparation for today. And I want you to see the heart in this, and I want you to see God's heart in this, that despite my fear, despite me saying there's no way I can survive through this, my God loved me. My God took care of me. Random strangers walking up and giving me $10,000 checks, things like that. People are people. No matter what mark they take, God will always use people to help take care of His people. God bless you. If you agree with this, share it out. If you don't, that's fine.